He built a secret home in a mall, and lived there for 4 years before being discovered. In 1999, the newly built Providence Place Mall opened its doors in Providence, Rhode Island. With its 1.4 million square feet of space and 160 stores and services, the $500 million project aimed to be a comprehensive shopping destination that would revitalize the city. While the Providence Place Mall was under construction, Michael Townsend, a resident and artist of the city, observed something peculiar. His daily running route took him past the construction site, and he observed a portion that appeared unusual. By the river, there were 2 large walls that almost connected but left a gap in the middle leading to an unused area. The oddly shaped space was too angular for a store and too strange for a part of the parking complex. It seemed like an accidental design mistake. In 2003, developers seeking to replicate the success of the Providence Place Mall searched the city for more sites to build retail units. They identified the historic Mill District as the ideal location for revitalization and rebuilding. Unfortunately, this was also where Michael lived. Michael and a group of artists lived collectively in one of the old warehouses in the historic Mill District, called Fort Thunder. When the decision to revitalize the area was made, Michael and many other residents fought for 2 years to save their home. Despite their efforts, Fort Thunder was ultimately replaced by a parking lot. Michael, who was a drawing instructor at Rhode Island School of Design and a founder of the tape art movement in the city, reached out to his artistic friends for assistance. After discussions, he and 7 other artists decided to create a project that would bring attention to the loss of livable space in Providence due to the expansion of retail development. In order to bring Trummerk into fruition, the group of artists planned to challenge themselves by residing for a week within Providence Place Mall without leaving. To achieve this, they required a secure location within the mall that would not be visible to mall security. This location couldn't be a store or a part of the parking lot. It was then that Michael remembered the odd void he had noticed years prior, providing a solution with a touch of creative justice. Michael checked to see if the void was still present. The developers had overlooked sealing it, making it accessible from the ground level as a long, dark crevice. The hidden space was filled with items discarded by the construction company 6 years prior, such as damaged wood and bags of zip ties. Despite its narrow dimensions, the room was spacious. The hidden space was more perfect than Michael could have dreamed, and upon seeing how much potential it had, the plans suddenly changed. They began wondering what a developer would do if they were in their shoes. And so they decided to turn the unused space into their own private condo. Instead of living in the mall for a week, now they'd try to live in the mall indefinitely, but the room just wouldn't do in its abandoned state. So Michael and co got to work, clearing it up. They hauled out all the debris by filling their backpacks and buckets with all the dirt and grime they could carry, dumping it outside without anyone noticing. Even though they were confident about their concealment, they didn't want word about the room to spread. So all 8 artists made an agreement not to share the space with anyone else. This secret setup was so perfect that people often stayed in the walls of the mall for up to 3 weeks at a time. It was all shared equally with the friends. And after the stealthy setup reached its 4th year of undiscovered glory, all 8 artists were starting to get quite comfortable. One day in 2007, they returned to the apartment only to discover they'd been well and truly rumbled. Their utility door had been kicked in and their precious PlayStation had been stolen along with some of their art and a photo album. And weirdly though, nothing else of value had been taken. Not the TV, not the silverware, just the really personal stuff. It became stomach-churning really clear that this wasn't an ordinary break-in. Even so, they couldn't exactly call the police. Unfortunately, this is where Michael made a huge mistake. He was hosting a visiting artist from Hong Kong called Yafa, and desperately wanted to show her the project that turned into a 4-year labor of love. Without thinking, he guided her into the mall in the middle of the day and showed her the room. Michael gave her the full tour, and needless to say she was very impressed. But then, just as they were about to leave, the eerie crackle of several walkie-talkies sounded from the other side of the door. Michael panicked and tried to think, but there was no other way out. As he opened the door, 3 security guards stormed forward and detained Michael on the spot. It turned out that 2 newly hired mall cops had discovered the room and were responsible for the earlier break-in. Instead of clearing everything out, they'd taken personal items so they could try and identify the culprits. He and Yaffa were handed over to the police and arrested for trespassing, but after being interrogated, Yaffa was released without any further action. Michael, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. He was sent to court where the mall's owner, General Growth Properties, had hired a lawyer who was ready to take Michael to the cleaners. Instead of hard time or a hefty fine, they handed Michael a misdemeanor for trespassing and sent him on his way. This slap on the wrist was nothing short of a miracle. Somehow Michael had lived on and off in the mall for 4 years, and even though he'd been caught, it cost him absolutely nothing. Even now, almost 15 years later, Michael still isn't allowed to step foot near the mall. He still lives close by, but if he wants to go downtown, he can't use the paths lining the river that cut underneath the mall.